Most people spend the second half of their lives desperately trying to preserve the first half. And Carl Jung believed that's exactly why so many of them grow bitter, anxious, and quietly terrified as the years pile up. They keep chasing the same things that worked when they were 25, and they can't understand why those things have stopped working. Why the achievements feel hollow, why the mirror feels like an enemy, why a strange loneliness has crept into rooms that used to feel full. Jung spent the last decades of his own life studying this exact transition. He watched patient after patient arrive in his consulting room somewhere in their 50s, 60s, 70s, convinced that something had gone wrong with them. And what he discovered was that almost nothing had gone wrong. They were simply standing at the border of a country nobody had prepared them to enter. He wrote something that stayed with me for a long time. We cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. For what was great in the morning will be little at evening, and what in the morning was true will at evening have become a lie. That single sentence contains most of what today is about, because aging, in Jung's view, isn't a slow fading of the light. It's a different kind of light entirely, one you can't see by if you keep squinting toward the position where the sun used to be. So today, I'm going to walk you through 7 harsh truths about growing old that Jung understood better than almost anyone. Not to depress you, to do the opposite. To hand you the map that most people never get, so the afternoon and evening of your life can be the richest part of it rather than the saddest. Let's start with the one that stings the most. The first harsh truth is this: everything you built your identity on is going to stop protecting you. Think about who you've been for most of your adult life. Maybe you were the provider, the strong one, the beautiful one, the competent professional everyone relied on, the parent whose entire existence orbited around raising children. Whatever it was, you built a version of yourself that worked, that earned respect, that got you through, that told you who you were when someone asked. Jung called this the persona. Basically, the face you constructed to meet the demands of the world. And in the first half of life, the persona is essential. You need it. You can't build a career or a family or a place in society without one. But here's what nobody tells you. Somewhere in the second half of life, the persona starts to dissolve whether you want it to or not. You retire, and suddenly the title that told everyone you mattered is gone. The children leave, and the identity you poured yourself into walks out the door with them. The body that made you feel attractive changes, and the reflection stops cooperating. And if you've mistaken the persona for your actual self, if you genuinely believe you are the job, the role, the face, then losing it feels like dying. That's the panic Jung saw in so many older people. They weren't afraid of aging in the abstract. They were watching the only self they'd ever known evaporate, and they had no idea what was underneath. The acceptance here is brutal, but freeing. You have to let the mask come off. You have to grieve it, honestly. And then you have to stop clutching at a version of yourself that the years have already retired. Because underneath the persona, there's someone who was never given room to exist. And old age, more than any other season, is when that person finally gets to breathe. Which brings us straight into the second truth, and it's one people spend enormous energy avoiding. The second harsh truth is that the life you didn't live will come back to find you. Jung had a concept he returned to again and again: the unlived life. All the choices you didn't make. The person you might have become if you'd taken the other road. The passions you shelved because they were impractical. The version of you that got buried under responsibility, fear, and the endless business of surviving. When you're young, you can outrun that unlived life. You tell yourself there's still time. You'll write the book later, mend the relationship later, become the person you always meant to be later. The future is a big enough room to store everything you're postponing. Then one morning you wake up and realize the room isn't infinite anymore, and everything you tucked away in there starts knocking on the door. This is why aging often arrives with a wave of regret so sharp it can knock the wind out of a person. It's not weakness, it's the psyche insisting on being made whole. Jung believed those buried, rejected, postponed parts of ourselves, what he called the shadow, don't simply disappear because we ignored them. They wait, and in the second half of life, they demand a reckoning. The harsh part is you can't go back and live the years you didn't live. That door is genuinely closed. But the acceptance transforms the pain into something usable. Because when you finally face the unlived life honestly, you stop letting it haunt you and you start letting it teach you. Maybe it's too late to become a concert pianist. It's not too late to touch the piano. The point was never the performance. It was the part of you that longed for it, and that part is still alive, still reachable, still yours. People who make peace with their unlived life in old age carry a particular kind of quiet in them. They've stopped negotiating with the past, and that alone removes an enormous weight. The third harsh truth is the one our entire culture is built to help you avoid. You are going to die, and pretending otherwise is poisoning the time you have left. We live in a world obsessed with looking young, staying young, defeating age like it's an illness, and Jung saw something genuinely dangerous in that. When a whole culture refuses to acknowledge death, individuals lose the ability to prepare for it, psychologically, spiritually, honestly. They arrive at the end blindsided, terrified, clinging. Here's what Jung actually believed, and it's more radical than it sounds. He thought that from the standpoint of the psyche, death is not simply an ending to be dreaded. He observed that the unconscious mind, in the second half of life, seems to orient itself toward death the way it once oriented toward growth. Dreams change. The inner world begins, in its own strange language, to prepare for the transition. And people who fight this, who spend their 70s and 80s in a rigid refusal to even glance at their own mortality, tend to become the most fearful. The denial doesn't protect them. It just isolates them inside an anxiety they're not allowed to name. Jung put it plainly, a person should be able to say they have lived so that they can also die. The acceptance of death, he argued, gives the remaining years a strange vitality. When you stop pretending you have forever, every ordinary afternoon becomes precious in a way it simply wasn't when you assumed there'd always be another one. This is the hardest acceptance of all, and I won't pretend it's a single decision you make once. It's something you turn towards slowly. But the people who can look at the end without flinching are almost always the ones who end up least afraid, and the most fully alive in whatever time is left. Before we go further into these truths, I want to mention something for anyone feeling that quiet stir of recognition right now. That sense that some part of you has been waiting a long time to be met. We put together a guide called True Self-Discovery, 24 reflection exercises rooted in Jung's work, made for exactly this kind of turning point, when the old maps stop working and you need a way to listen to what's underneath. If that's where you are, the link is right below. Now let's keep going, because the next truth is where a lot of people quietly break. The fourth harsh truth is that the applause fades, and you have to become your own witness. For most of your life, other people have reflected you back to yourself. Your parents were proud. Your boss noticed your work. Your friends admired something in you. Strangers registered your presence. There was a constant low hum of validation, sometimes loud, sometimes faint, but always there, confirming that you existed and mattered. Old age turns the volume down on all of it. The professional world stops calling. The culture stops seeing you. There's a genuine invisibility that comes with age, especially in societies that worship youth. Friends grow scarce. The people whose good opinion once organized your entire sense of self are busy, gone, or no longer around to give it. Jung understood that this is where a great many people fall into despair. They spent 70 years sourcing their worth from outside themselves, and then the outside went quiet, and they were left with a self they'd never learned to value on its own terms. But he also saw this as one of the great invitations of aging, because the task of the second half of life, in his framework, is to shift the center of gravity from the outer world to the inner one, to stop performing for an audience and start becoming acquainted with the one person who's been with you the entire time, you. The acceptance here is that no amount of external validation is coming to save you, and it never really could. The peace you were hoping to earn from other people's approval has to be generated from within. And strangely, the moment you stop needing the world to witness you, you finally become capable of witnessing yourself, kindly, honestly, without the performance. That inner companionship is quieter than applause. It's also far more durable because nobody can take it away. The fifth harsh truth is that your body is going to decline, and if your identity is fused to it, you're going to suffer terribly. There's no gentle way around this one. The knees go. The energy that once felt endless starts rationing itself. Things that were effortless become projects. The face in the photographs from 20 years ago starts to look like a stranger you used to be. For anyone who built their sense of self around strength, beauty, or physical capability, this is a slow, relentless grief. Jung didn't romanticize this. He knew the body's decline was real and often painful, but he insisted that the deeper problem was rarely the decline itself. It was the person's refusal to relocate their identity somewhere the body couldn't drag it down with it. If you are your body, then aging is nothing but loss. Each year takes something and gives nothing back. But Jung's whole life's work pointed towards something else living inside a person, a center he called the self, the deep organizing core of the psyche that doesn't wrinkle, doesn't tire, doesn't fade with the muscles. The parts of you capable of meaning, wisdom, love, and depth don't run on physical vitality. In many people, they only ripen once the physical stops shouting so loudly. The acceptance is learning to hold the body with something closer to tenderness than resentment. It carried you. It's tired. That's allowed. And you are more than the vessel, even as you care for it, even as you mourn what it used to do. Jung wrote that the afternoon of life is just as full of meaning as the morning, only its meaning and its purpose are different. The body's decline is the loudest signal that you've crossed into afternoon. It's asking you to find your meaning somewhere the morning never taught you to look. The sixth harsh truth is that solitude is coming, and it will be either a prison or a sanctuary, depending entirely on what you've built inside yourself. As you age, the circle contracts. People die. That's the plain, unavoidable arithmetic of a long life. You outlive some of the people you love most. Partners pass. Old friends thin out. The house that once rang with children and noise falls into a silence that can feel like an accusation. And here's the thing Jung saw clearly. Solitude and loneliness are made of the same raw material, but they are wildly different experiences. Loneliness is solitude experienced as abandonment, as proof that you've been left, forgotten, discarded. Sanctuary is that same aloneness experienced as spaciousness, depth, a coming home to yourself. What determines which one you get isn't your circumstances. It's the relationship you've developed with your own inner world. The person who never went inward, who kept the noise on to avoid ever meeting themselves, finds the silence of old age unbearable, because there's a stranger inside it, and they've spent their whole life avoiding him. The person who did the inner work finds that same silence full, populated by memory, meaning, reflection, and a self worth spending time with. Jung's own later years were marked by long stretches of deliberate solitude in the stone tower he built by the lake at Bollingen. He didn't experience it as deprivation. He experienced it as some of the most alive time of his life. The difference wasn't that he had no losses. It was that he'd built an interior worth being alone with. The acceptance is that some of the aloneness is simply coming, and no strategy will fully prevent it. But you can decide, starting now, whether you'll arrive there as a stranger to yourself or as your own good company. That work can't be done at the last minute. It's the labor of years, which is precisely why it's worth beginning the moment you realize it matters. The seventh harsh truth is the one that gives all the others their meaning. No one is coming to hand you the purpose of your life. Finding it is now entirely your job, and it's the most important work you have left. In the first half of life, purpose tends to be handed to you by circumstance. You need to earn money. You need to raise these children. You need to establish yourself. The tasks are obvious, external, urgent. You don't have to ask what your life is for because the demands answer the question for you every single morning. Then those demands fall away. The children are grown. The career is finished. The mortgage is paid or it isn't. But either way, the structure that organized your days for decades quietly disbands. And a great many people staring into that open space conclude that their life is essentially over, that the meaningful part has already happened, and now they're just waiting. Jung considered this one of the great tragedies of modern aging, because he believed the deepest, most important work of a human life doesn't happen in the busy morning. It happens in the afternoon and the evening, when the external noise finally quiets enough for the real question to be heard. Who am I, underneath everything I did to survive? He called the answer to that question individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole, of integrating all the scattered, denied, and hidden parts of yourself into something genuine and complete. And old age, far from being individuation's end, is its natural culmination. It's the season the whole thing was building toward. The morning was research. This is the work the research was for. The acceptance is that meaning is no longer going to be assigned to you. You have to author it. That might sound like a burden, and for people who never developed an inner life, it genuinely is. But for anyone willing to turn inward, it's the greatest freedom a human being ever gets. A stretch of time where, maybe for the first time, your life gets to be about who you actually are, rather than what everyone needed you to be. So let's pull these 7 together, because they aren't really 7 separate truths. They're 7 faces of the same one. Your persona dissolves, so you can finally find the self underneath it. The unlived life resurfaces, so you can make peace with it and reclaim what's still reachable. Death moves closer, so the remaining time becomes precious instead of assumed. The applause fades, so you can learn to witness yourself. The body declines, so you're forced to locate your worth somewhere deeper. Solitude arrives, so you can discover whether you're worth being alone with. And purpose stops being handed to you, so you can, at last, become its author. Every one of these looks like a loss from the vantage point of the morning, and from the vantage point of the afternoon, each one is a door. That's the reversal Jung spent his life trying to help people see. The things that make old age frightening are the exact same things that make it the most meaningful chapter available to a human being, but only if you stop trying to live the evening by the rules of the dawn. The people who age badly are almost always the ones still fighting to stay in the morning, clutching the persona, denying the body, refusing the silence, running from the end. Their suffering isn't caused by aging. It's caused by the refusal to age, by the exhausting, unwinnable war against a season that was always going to come. And the people who age with something like grace, even joy, aren't the ones who got lucky with their health or their circumstances. They're the ones who accepted the harsh truths early enough to stop wasting their strength resisting them. They let the light change. They turned to face the new direction it was coming from. And they found, often to their own astonishment, that the evening had a beauty the noon could never have shown them. If you're somewhere in this transition right now, feeling the ground shift, sensing that the old rules have quietly stopped working, wondering who you're supposed to be now that the morning is over, I gently point you toward our guide, True Self-Discovery. 24 reflection exercises drawn from Jung's work, built to help you do exactly this turning inward while there's still so much life to give it to. The link is right below.